Guys, isso aqui então basicamente é o vídeo que eles postaram aí, o Forjado em Eterno. Falei que essa semana ia começar a sair, né? Já saiu hoje na segunda. Eles falam aqui sobre Ward and Banes, né? Que seriam os perks de proteção a corrompido, dano corrompido, essas paradas. Mas eles vão falar de perk em geral aqui, tá ligado? Então vamos lá.
I know that was the community's favorite perk.
É só a introdução no vídeo.
I don't know. Unfortunately was the right word there.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forged in Eternum, where we talk about all things New World. I'm here with Patrick and Dave today, and we're going to talk about wards and banes. We're getting rid of them. Show over. See you next time. Just kidding. But we are removing wards and banes. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, high level, we want people to be able to enjoy our gear system and really go for aspirational perks and perks that change their build. Whereas this felt a little bit too much like a chore, right? Like I had to get these to be competitive in certain modes like mutations, or I had to get resilient to be competitive in PvP. And I think we want to sort of like reduce the amount of required perks and instead let people sort of experiment and try around perks.
But what stinks is I worked really hard to get all these corrupted wards. Are you just going to take them away from me?
Ah, sim. Basicamente, antes, a ideia inicial deles era tirar esses perks e colocar algo que desse saúde e umas utilidades parecidas. Mas não vai acontecer mais isso, tá ligado? Só pra ficar claro, né?
Any gear you acquire in the future above gear score 625 will not have ward dropping, will not have resistance dropping, will not have resilient dropping. So the new gear you're going to get is going to be a lot more exciting because there's going to be more viable perks on it, and less perks that you don't really want to see on your gear. So Indestructible is unfortunately gone. I know that was the community's favorite perk, so very sad.
Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately was the right word there, Patrick.
Finalmente tiraram esse perk de indestrutível, filho.
Yes.
But I think that's an important thing, right? Like there's a couple perks we just thought, hey, these are never going to be viable.
Yeah.
Like people will never want this in gear, and I think those are now disappearing. So that you don't get that disappointment of getting a cool piece of gear with it.
And it's worth mentioning, at one point they made sense when we were thinking about gear differently, a couple years ago, but the game's evolved, we listened to the players, we're pushing in different
directions. É, parada que tem muito perk antigo no jogo, mano, que não funciona mais.
So what else you want to talk about, Patrick?
E estraga os itens, né?
Along with removing ward, resilient, and other perks, we're doing
Aqui ele já afirma que além de remover as proteções lá, de tipo, dano corrompido, pá, vai ser removido resiliente também e outras vantagens, tá ligado? E também estão fazendo um reequilíbrio de vantagens. Cara, vai mudar todos os perks, basicamente, tá ligado? E a remoção de alguns importantes, né? Por isso que eu falei no vídeo do futuro do New World que esse set que nós temos basicamente não vai funcionar, né?
Broad perk rebalance. So there's a number of perks you're not going to see on that gear that is below gear score or above gear score 625 in the future. So we already talked about the wards and the resilience. Other perks will be going away. Some of the underperforming perks that we like but aren't really often selected by the community are going to be rebalanced to be more attractive choices, so I'm very excited about that. Then we're also going to be adjusting some of the currently overperforming perks, so things like attunement might see their cooldown increase slightly. So across the board, though, we're trying to make sure that the perks are finding that nice equilibrium where any perk is valuable in the game.
Basicamente eles falaram que os perks tudo estão sendo reanalisados, querem ver os perks que a comunidade pediu pra trocar, vão pedir ainda. Então estão capricho.
Mentioning, as we remove certain perks from the game, we're also going to be adding some new perks to make more room, especially on armor, right? Where we remove all the wards, Patrick?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're adding a few new perks with this perk rebalance. So for example, touching on weapons specifically, there's only really been one good healing perk, and that's Blessed. We're adding a lot more healing perks that are conditional. So they add bonus healing, but based on certain conditions. So you might want to run a certain staff for a boss that might be very damage over time heavy, things like that. So we're trying to make sure that there's different gear for different situations, and it's all exciting and valuable to players.
And, as part of the...
Eles afirmaram que, tipo assim, vai ter perk novo de tudo, tá ligado? Várias coisas, mas eles afirmaram que pra parte de cura ali, é o que mais vai ter, provavelmente. Ele deu até um exemplo ali de batalha a longo tempo. Sei lá, vai ter uns perk baseados literalmente em tempo, provavelmente. Quanto mais se realar, mais debuff vai dar, sei lá, ou mais buff. Sei lá, esperar chegar, né?
About modifying how ward potions work, right?
Yeah. So one of the things, we do like this idea of a little bit of a prep loop, for expeditions or various, sort of higher level content. So making the ward potions, which are currently sort of like, used for specific battles, making them last the whole expedition, right? So like you go in prep with a potion, so it's much lighter weight, but it still gives you a little bit of that prep and bolsters the economy.
Which I kind of like that because it makes it gives us the ability to put more enemy types in an expedition. And it not feeling like, oh my God, I have to change my gear, as opposed to just taking a new potion. It's a little easier, to get through that.
A couple things more on maybe.
Aqui ele afirmou que que já que eles vão tirar essa proteção aí, por exemplo, proteção à terra indócil, agora ela vai vir em forma de poção, tá ligado? Eu esperava que fosse food, né? Mas aqui eles falaram novamente que é poção. Poderia ser food pra ajudar a melhorar o mercado, né, mano? De food, porque é muito zoado. Mas vai ser poção.
The nerdy side are people that are really into this stuff. Yeah, I think on the attribute stuff, one of the things we do right now is that the attributes are asymmetric, right? So, you know, there's ones where strength is more than dex, and then dex is more than strength. We're going to change that so that they're now equal, right? So that it's an equal split. And I think that will, I think, be easier for players to understand, reduce some of the drop types and things like that. So I think that'll be pretty interesting.
Ó, isso aqui é massa, mano. É meio difícil de entender, mas é... O que ele deixa meio claro é que a parada de atributo lá, de vez em quando vem, tipo, 15 de força e 15 de destreza. Na verdade, tem vezes que vem 20 e 10, tá ligado? Eles querem deixar 15 e 15. Eles vão deixar mais nivelado essas paradas. E meio que deu a entender, talvez, também que muda até em questão de drop, tá ligado? De item muito bom dropar com atributo nada a ver, assim. Meio que deixou a entender isso também. Mas a única coisa que ele confirmou a certeza é que eles vão deixar mais igual o nível de atributo, tipo, 15, 15, 10, 10, 5, 5, em vez de, sei lá, 20, 10, ligado?
Patrick, is any of this going to have an effect on your inventory?
It will. So there's a lot of perk mods right now for crafting certain attribute bonuses that will be going away. The aim there is to streamline crafting and also make you manage far fewer perk mods. If you look in my inventory right now, I've probably got a couple hundred perk mods just sitting there. The goal there is to reduce that number significantly so you're crafting things that are more meaningful.
I'm with you on that. There's so many, it's hard to even get through them all when you're looking for some.
Yeah.
So overall, I think this is going to be a pretty massive change to the game and have a big impact. I'm pretty excited about it. But is there anything else either of you want to add?
No, I think this is going to be a really nice change, and I think, you know, Katie mentioned in our Q&A, like, what's nice about this is it was really spurred by a lot of customer sentiment, right? Like, I think players have been talking about how annoying Banes can be, especially when we had a couple expeditions that had multiple family types. That's what really brought it to the forefront. And I think, you know, while we were looking at that, we made some changes in Imperium Forge to require only one set.
Essa Forge aí,
criaram
uma vida humana, mudaram um monte lá, só perdendo tempo, tá ligado?
E
logo uma season depois já vai mudar de novo.
One more thing I thought of in the middle of this conversation that we can mention is it's also going to allow us to balance the expeditions and the mutations more toward a common thing and not assume people have these wards or don't have them. So I think that's going to create different builds coming in that are going to make the gameplay more interesting and more varied.
And hopefully a little less of, hey, link gear before I let you in my group. I think that's another big goal here.
Yeah, I think if you're, you know, if the perks are much more strong for expeditions, then it's going to be your gear score speaks volumes, and then it's your play style is going to be the differentiator.
That's exactly right.
Ele falou de pingar né, que os caras ficam falando pra linkar o set, mas provavelmente ainda aconteça, né, mano? Vai querer ver se o cara tá com o GS certo e se os perks deles são bons, mano. Não adianta também agora que mudou, os caras não vão usar mais perk de nada.
In a theoretical world, like, we're never going to hit this perfect the first time, but where every perk is just as viable as every other, it doesn't matter exactly which perks you have, just that you have, you know, the gear score.
Yeah, and if you like to play a certain way, you're going to have perks that support that versus someone else. I think that'll be that's the dream space. We'll see, like, and we're going to need everyone who's
mas isso
watching.
É real, vai ter umas dungeons muito diferentes agora. Vai mudar um pouco o sistema de build mesmo.
All right, I think that's all we got for today. Thanks, Patrick and Dave, and thanks everyone for watching. But before we go, we do have a question for the community. Actually, I'm going to ask two questions. If you could buff any perk, what would you buff? And if you could cut any perk, what would you cut? And with that, if you like what you saw, let us know, like and subscribe.
Basicamente é isso, mano. Resumidamente, vão remover vários perks inúteis e alguns bons também, por exemplo, como Resiliente, que é o mais importante do PVP, então por isso que vai ter que recriar 7 na Season 3. E também vão remover, cara, eles falaram só de proteção, então eu acredito que na espada, por exemplo, dano corrompido ainda mantenha, tá ligado? Né? Porque eles só falam de proteção, então acho que talvez seja só do 7 que vai sair. Os das armas também, sim, vão remover o Resiliente, mano. Por isso que vai ter que recriar 7 na Season 3. E no mais é isso. Quem são esses caras aí? Mano, do meio é diretor-geral do New World, se eu não me engano. Ele é tipo diretor assim, tá ligado? O da direita, ele é o cara que manda nos combates de equilíbrio, tipo, como se fosse, tipo, sei lá, o líder da equipe de combate, tá ligado? Ele que mexe nos equilíbrios, pá. E o cara da esquerda, ele tá trabalhando nos perks, não sei o que ele é, mas ele deve ser meio geral do jogo, assim. Tá acabado, velho.
Otherwise, see you in AETERNUM.
See you in AETERNUM. Mano, eles são muito desgraçados, porque eles sempre deixam um spoiler aqui do próximo vídeo.
Otherwise, see you in
Mas
AETERNUM.
eles só colocaram aqui, ó. E no próximo é o Community QA, mano. Cara, isso aqui, tomara que lance logo essa semana aí, mano. Até mesmo porque tá acabando agosto, né? Aqui vem umas perguntas boas, mano. Boa mesmo. O cara sempre responde uns negócios que, tipo, é curioso, em que a gente quer saber logo. Mas é isso, tá ligado?